Right.
but to use them in perhaps a different and a more basic way. How would you get this word out to the churches? I mean, what would you say to the churches in terms of trying to encourage this kind of concern, really? Not necessarily the structure, but the concern.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to start with a definition of the problem, and with the time in view, I think there are three acronyms that I can use to define the problem. I call it the IVD. I would be identity, which we've already talked about. V would represent values. And our church would be the areas where these values would be developed. Values of sharing, values of respect, values of nurturing, values of parenting. All those things would come within our church. And the D would represent development. Our community is underdeveloped economically, and that's why you have all the social problems that you basically have. We need education within the community, we need employment within the community, and we need some general respect. Now, let me address one problem directly, and we're talking about the problems of teens. The problem of teen pregnancy relates to the first thing that happens before a person gets pregnant, and that is having sexual intercourse. We need, as moral agents in the community, especially the ministers, the churches, the mosque, and all the other religious institutions that we have, to really be very forthcoming and say that virginity and chastity are better than the problems that we have. Okay? We have a situation where young men go through our community and they have affairs with every young lady who's there, but when they look for a wife, they don't look for that woman who's been used. They're looking for a virgin, and at the same time, they're destroying the virgins in the community. So I think, considering the extremity of our problem, we really can't afford the luxury of playing with premarital sex. I mean, we either have to take commitments of chastity if we're not virgins, or to remain virgins. I think that's the strategy. Now, I'm not just talking in terms of women. I'm talking about the young men as well. Virginity and chastity, I think, should be the rule for both the young men and the young ladies. Now, I know this is best said from a pulpit rather than sociologists saying it, but I think the preachers are going to have to be really firm on this issue. They can't really say, well, you shouldn't have sex unless it's within the bond of a committed relationship. That doesn't mean anything. The minister should say directly, one should not have sex unless one is married, and be very firm on that, because that is the law. That's what the Bible says, and we should be firm on that.
So those are the basic areas that you think that if we can concentrate our attention, that we can deal with some of the problems that we're having with our young people, our teenagers, as well as male as well as female teenagers.
Yeah, if sex is reserved for marriage, then responsibility comes along with that, and commitment. Now, this premarital thing, there's no responsibility, there's no commitment. A guy might marry a young lady, he might not. Most cases, he doesn't. And in other cases, he's going to deny that it's his child. I mean, and so you create this particular problem. When the child comes in the world, the young man is nowhere to be found.
So you're talking essentially about a moral reformation within many of our communities, and not necessarily the black community, but I think that these are some of the problems, as we've indicated time and time again, when we talk about teen pregnancies. Yeah. We're not necessarily exclusively talking about black people,
but these are some of
the young Americans. Yeah. And so you're suggesting that not only should we be concerned about that within our community, but there ought to be some kind of national effort on the part of preachers, members of the various kinds of religious organizations and groups to speak to these issues of morality within American society.
Very definitely.
Very good. Yeah. We've got about a minute, Dr. Jackson. Is there anything that you would like to leave in terms of the overall question?
Yeah. Well, I would comment briefly on the idea of development. If we look at our problem, this system has proven one or two things. Either it's unwilling or unable to solve the problems of employment in our community. So rather than becoming totally dependent on the system for that, we need to develop businesses and employment within the community ourselves to offset the meager amount of employment that is forthcoming from the system itself. So we do need a very strong economic strategy based on a principle of self-reliance rather than dependent on government and the charity of people who are external to the community.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jackson, and we're delighted to have had you on this segment of our program to share with us some of the knowledge that you have about the problems within our community. And we'll be back with you following this commercial break.